KLEK 102.5 FM. It's about 3 minutes to the hour of 9 o'clock. We're going to soon start our Jonesboro City Clerk debate, so just hang tight with us and we will be with you live at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. So go ahead, call a friend and tell them to listen in or join us on our Facebook Live where the candidates for City Clerk of Jonesboro will debate. We've got April Leggett, Stan Mitchell, and Linda Allison. They are all here in the studio, and we're all masked up, by the way. So we'll see you at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. This is KLEK 102.5 FM.
Your body, tell me you want mine too.
KLEK FM. Broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower, this is KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council.
Jonesboro's community radio station. Your life, your music. KLEK 102.5 FM.
Good Friday morning, Jonesboro. This is meteorologist Tim Root with your KLEK 102.5 forecast. Mostly sunny skies with temperatures in the mid-60s today and northwest winds about 5 to 10. It'll be in the fall 40s tonight, 42 to 48, mostly clear skies and light winds. Saturday's going to be the best day out of the weekend. It'll be mostly sunny in the mid to upper 60s. A chance of showers later Saturday night. Showers and maybe a rumble of thunder Sunday. Partly sunny, about 65 to 70. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. US President Donald Trump and his wife Melania have tested positive for coronavirus. Mr. Trump and the First Lady had already been self-isolating after one of his aides contracted COVID-19. EU leaders have agreed to impose sanctions on 40 Belarusian officials 55 days since protests in the country after August's election. And the EU's threatened sanctions against Turkey too amid a row with Greece.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5 FM, good morning to you on your Friday. It's October 2nd, 2020. This is Community Conversations. Kato Wonder is here in the studio with you. I am joined by Quabila Jones via Zoom, host of Community Conversations, and this is our Jonesboro City Clerk debate, and we have all three candidates that are running for this position in the studio. We have Mrs. April Luckett, Mr. Stan Mitchell, and Mrs. Linda Allison, all here in the studio. And of course, KLEK, we do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. This debate is provided for informational purposes only, but we do encourage you to exercise your right to vote. Election day is November 3rd. October 19th, early voting will begin. October 5th is the last day to register to vote, and there will be a voter registration event tomorrow at the Salvation Army from 10:30 to 12:30. If you haven't got registered to vote, you can come out there. KLEK, we will be broadcasting live. Now, let's go ahead and get into how this debate will take place. We're going to start off with 2-minute opening segment, which Mrs. Leggett won our number picking game, and then we'll go to Mr. Mitchell and Mrs. Allison. Each will give a 2-minute opening statement, and then we will begin our first segment with questions that Quabila and I chose for the candidates, and then on our second segment, we will take questions from you in our Facebook Live feed, so go ahead and start dropping those questions right now. And then our third segment, each of the candidates will ask questions of each other. Our fourth segment, the candidates have to say something nice about each of their opponents, and then we will end with closing statements. So we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and start with opening statements with Mrs. Leggett, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
Hello, my name is April Leggett. I have grown up in Jonesboro. I've gone to Jonesboro Public Schools, graduated from Jonesboro High School, graduated from Arkansas State University with my undergraduate degree in business administration, and I graduated with my master's degree in business technology. I also am a certified municipal clerk through the Arkansas City Clerks, Recorders, and Treasurers Association and the International Municipal Clerks Association. I am married and have been for almost 22 years. We have 2 children. My husband is a teacher. My kids are in Jonesboro Public Schools. I have worked for the city clerk's office since 2006, so I've been there a little over 4.5 years. I started as office manager, and when a position opened up, I was promoted into deputy city clerk, and I've been the deputy city clerk for the last 3 years. I love Jonesboro. It's my home. It's my community. It's where I've grown up. It's where I want my kids and my family to grow up and learn and grow and come together as a community and serve our community. I've worked the last 25 years in some sort of government service, from the Jonesboro Housing Authority to District Court to Arkansas State University to the city of Jonesboro, and I enjoy what I do.
All right, well, thank you, Mrs. Leggett. We will now go to Mr. Mitchell, 2 minutes.
Good morning, Jonesboro. I'm Stan Mitchell. My interest in the city clerk's office began in 1988 as a college student, when as a student in the communications law class, I was required to attend the meetings. During that time, we would take detailed notes, and then we would have to reproduce a report. It captured my interest noticing the city council, how they interacted and worked toward the issues of our city. And listening to the reports of the committee chairman, I developed an interest, and I got to know our city clerk at the time, Weta Courier Harden. Miss Harden was great when I was a student. After the meeting, she would stay and assist us if we needed clarification on an issue, or would even replay the recordings for us to make sure that we could get the information accurate. I believe that is a very important job of the clerk's office, is to make sure that the record is reflected accurately. If I'm elected your clerk, I promise you that it will be reflected accurately.
All right, is that it?
Yes, that'll be it.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. We'll now go on to Mrs. Allison.
Well, I want to thank you both for having this forum for us to be able to speak. As I've talked to several people in the community, it's interesting because everybody's focus is on the presidential race or it's on the mayoral race, and most people don't really know that much about a city clerk position. And we've had a city clerk in for 30 years, and people are still getting it confused with the county clerk position. So I just want to say thank you again for allowing us to come in and speak and be able to tell you a little bit about ourselves. And my name again is Linda Allison, and I grew up in Jonesboro and attended Arkansas State University and played basketball here at Arkansas State. I received a degree in business management with an emphasis in human resources and with honors, and began my professional career right here in Jonesboro. And again, it's a great place to raise a family. And I have always been committed to working in the community throughout my professional career. And I believe in giving back to the community. I've been very involved in the Chamber of Commerce, been very involved in community events and volunteering for different things. And I just want to take my leadership skills, the integrity that I have earned over the last 30 years that I've been working in this area. And I also want to be a team player for the city clerk's position, because a team stands for together, everyone achieves more. And I believe in bringing the skills that I have gained through my various job responsibilities to provide additional. I want to be the teamwork plus one. I want to be able to give back to other departments in the city of Jonesboro to make it a better working environment.
All right, and we thank you for that, Ms. Allison. We're going to go to Kabila Jones, who will ask our first question, and let me get this clock reset. All right, so Kabila, go ahead and ask our first question, and also to who you want to go first.
Well, we'll stick with the same how it went before. So whoever went first, was it Ms. Leggett?
It was Ms. Leggett.
Okay, so the question is, you all have mentioned your previous experience, your job experience, and maybe other experience relating to the city of Jonesboro. So please expound a little bit more how that experience will lend itself to your role as city clerk, working with different departments, the mayor. Give us a little more specifics if you can, please.
All right, Ms. Leggett, 2 minutes starts now.
Okay, it's teamwork to make the city work. We can't just do it by ourselves. We have to depend on each other and work together. Like I've said, I worked for the city for the last 4.5 years. I've been training for this position. I know what to do. I will be ready on day one. I think it's very important to make sure that you are working together, that you're working with the public, that you're transparent in what you do. With the city clerk's office, it's less political than any other position. And I say that because I'm not getting out and doing the things that the mayor does, with meeting people, businesses, and opening up, and ribbon cuttings, and doing all the things that they do. They have a very important job, but we also have a very important job, and that's to remain neutral, because we are the bridge between the government and the citizens. We do not take sides. We take an accurate record of what the proceedings were during the city council meetings, and we get that out to the public. And our number one goal is to provide excellent customer service, and that's what we do.
All right, we will now go to Mr. Mitchell. You now have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, I was a news reporter here for 18 years. Covered every kind of public meeting there was. Took minutes at it, or notes. I just feel that my experience there will be an asset to the city. I've worked in county government for 6.5 years, and I've kept county records. I know how to do that as well. I will have an open door policy. You can call me. I will also continue Ms. Harden's procedure there to where I will stay after the council meetings. I will meet with the students. I will meet with the public. If there's an issue that needs to be clarified, I'll spend as much time with you as I need. I am a people person, and I like to meet people, talk to people. Come by, see me. One thing I would like to do, instead of there just be a listing on the city council agenda, I'd like to see that expanded a little bit where we could include a little more information about each issue. I believe that the more informed the public is, the better this community will be. So if I'm elected, that's one change that I would make there.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Mitchell, and we will go to Mrs. Allison. You now have 2 minutes.
So I just want to reemphasize again that in my past jobs that I've had in administrative roles and in also owning my own business, that I bring leadership skills to that office that I think will be very important moving forward with that job, that again will work closely with other city departments. First and foremost, I want to make sure that the city clerk's position, that it is run to the utmost capabilities that it needs to be. So in addition to bringing my leadership skills to that department, again, I want to work closely with other departments. I've talked to several different department directors already, and if I can bring any of those skills and assets. So I visited with our fire chief, and he was trying to figure out a way that that the fire department could bring more awareness to the community about receiving job applications. So we had a brief discussion about that. So if I can bring some of the skills that I have learned from previous jobs to help other city departments, and again, my utmost priority is going to be making sure that city clerk's job is run in the most efficient way. I'm a very organized person, very efficient, very responsive, and like Stan said, we want to make sure that we're accessible to the public. We want to make sure that we can reach out and make people aware what the city clerk's job does and make sure that the public understands how we can provide documentation to them to make it easier for them to understand how they can get involved in city government. And including, like in the last couple of times that we've had voter registration, I've actually gone out to help with that because I think it's important.
All right,
Sorry.
Mrs. Allison, we're going to have to leave it there. 2 minutes has expired. It is now time for the next question, and which I will ask, and we will actually lead with you, Mrs. Allison. This one, I hear things like experience in different fields, whether it's in being a clerk or in another profession. But besides experience, what do you think is the most important trait a city clerk should have? And we'll start with Mrs. Allison. You now have 2 minutes.
Sure. Well, and again, I think that first and foremost, that's an elected position, and I think people need to understand the role of the city clerk and how we would be the document resource center, that we are the avenue to be able to provide documentation for the public, whether it's a resolution or ordinance that have been recorded. But I feel like leadership is a very important aspect of this. Again, it's an elected position. You need to know who your city clerk is. You need to know how that government office is run. It needs to be providing good customer service. And I talked to someone who had they were also an previous insurance agent, and they understand the value of customer service. And they understand how important it is, whether it's the public or whether it is another employee in the city government, that customer service is a real priority. And you don't always see that in a government job because they don't have to worry typically about losing business because they're there regardless of what goes on. So I feel like there's integrity that needs to be there. The public needs to know that there's transparency there. Those are all things that I'm going to bring to the table.
All right, and we will now go with Mr. Mitchell. You now have 2 minutes.
I agree with Linda with the integrity. I think that is a very important part of the clerk's office, that integrity. Compassion, you need to show compassion toward our fellow Jonesboroans, and I believe that the clerk's office is the bridge between government and the citizens of Jonesboro. you should really work hard to keep the people informed, have an open mind, and listen. I'm trained to listen, and so I'll do that, and I'll work hard to make sure that the duties of the clerk are performed to the best of my ability. I just would ask for your vote come November, because I really would enjoy being your clerk.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
All right, we'll now go to Mrs. Leggett. You now have 2 minutes.
As I first said, customer service is the #1 priority of our office. We serve the citizens, but we also work within the city government, and we work together as a team. We have worked really hard to be open and transparent. Our offices have been open to the public this whole time during this pandemic. You can call, they will do temperature checks and let you in at the door, but you can come in, you can speak to us. We do require masks, but we're open, we're there, we're able to answer your questions, and if we can't, we go beyond and try to get whomever it is that needs to answer your question to get that done. And we do get confused a lot with the county clerk. We get lots and lots of calls, but if there's any kind of problem that a citizen is having, we try our best to forward that to the correct person that can help them with that problem.
All right, we will now, thank you very much. We will now go to Quabila, who will ask the next question for our candidates.
Okay, so taking into account the investment that is made into the training of the person that's in this position, be it, continuing education as far as going to seminars, trainings outside of the city of Jonesboro, how do you feel about this position potentially, if it's possible, to become an appointed position versus an elected position, and also taking into account that the mayor would not be the sole decision maker?
And who you want to go first?
Oh, we're going to start with the gentleman first.
All right, so we'll start with Mr. Mitchell, 2 minutes.
All right. I think the position should stay an elected position. It really should be independent of the mayor's office and the council, because you're there to record the minutes, and you're to be unbiased. And I think if you get into an appointed clerk, you'll run into the chance of that clerk feeling an obligation to go along with a mayor or a council or whoever's appointed. I don't think that's a good move for our city. I think we need to keep checks and balances in place as best we can. And I think the best way of doing that in the clerk's office is to let it remain independent of that mayor's office and council, and therefore I think it should remain an elected position.
All right, we will now go to Mrs. Allison, 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I do agree with Stan on one side of that you do need to have an elected position so that there is no bias from the mayor's office. But I also think that maybe there needs to be some consideration for that to be possibly a position that you would potentially interview for, maybe through a committee of people of the city council and mayor and maybe some other people that would be able to go through that process, only because I think it's very important that you get the most qualified candidate for the job. And you might not be able to get your message out to a city of 67,000 people during a pandemic, to be able to make sure that the voters are well informed of who their candidates are. So right now we have the mayoral debates that are actually on KAIT with KASU partnering. So we have that for people to look at, and of course you guys do a fantastic job of bringing all the candidates on the radio to go through this interview process. But there's still going to be people that don't hear this message, or they don't hear the television. So there's massive, different ways of social media to get the information out. But I still don't know that all of the residents of Jonesboro get that message. So I can see it could be Potentially, I did talk with a city clerk's office in another community that's a little bit smaller than Jonesboro, and they have a senior and a junior deputy clerks, and then they have the elected position, so that if something were to happen to the city clerk, you still have some people that work in the office that could carry on and conduct business without having to replace the city clerk immediately. But
we're going to have to leave it there. Time is expired. We will now go to Mrs. Leggett. You now have 2 minutes.
I will echo the sentiments of Ms. Linda. It should remain an elected position. I don't believe appointed would be the best option. You don't want to have a mayor as your boss per se and tell you that you have to do this or you have to do that or we're going to fire you. Of course, there is the option of going before council if you are fired from the mayor, and the city council can overturn that on an appointed position or as an employee. I really think that elected is probably the best option. And I also agree that it's really hard to get your message out, especially during a pandemic. People don't know what the city clerk does. They don't know what is going on in their community and their city council. We do stream our meetings are live streamed, not only on Facebook, but also on Legistar and on the television station Channel 24. And people can watch those, or they can go back if they didn't have time to watch them during the meeting. They can go back and watch them at any time that they are there.
All right, we thank you, Mrs. Leggett, for your response to that question. That is going to conclude our first segment of the debate. We are speaking with Mrs. April Leggett, Mr. Stan Mitchell, and Mrs. Linda Allison, the candidates for Jonesboro City Clerk. And don't forget about that voter registration event tomorrow at the Salvation Army from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We will be broadcasting live. So if you have not gotten registered to vote, we're not going to tell you which one of these three or any candidate to vote for, but definitely go out and register to vote. In fact, several of the candidates have submitted videos promoting it. Did Ms. Phillips approach any of you about doing a promo video? Okay, I didn't know. I just know I've seen a bunch of them. But I get ready to go into a break, and when we come back from break, we are going to take your questions from our Facebook Live feed. So go ahead, jump on that Facebook, post your questions, and we are going to ask them to all of the candidates. This is the Jonesboro City Clerk debate on KLEK 102.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Dads, have you thought about your legacy lately? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. Webster's Dictionary says a legacy is something handed down from one who has gone before. Fathers, we will eventually be that one who has gone before. We will leave a legacy, good or bad, and how we live will influence our children and descendants for generations. Sure, what you say to your kids is important, but what they see in you is equally important. So be a man of character, conviction, and passion. As Father's Day approaches, start focusing on leaving your legacy. Listen to my newest podcast at markmerrill.com as I discuss my father's legacy and what I learned from him. Remember, your family first.
Made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. KNOMEGA 1908
Brought to you by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, dedicated to the purpose of achievement. Jonesboro Alumni at gmail.com, Jonesboro AR Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity on Facebook, and Jonesboro_Kappas on Instagram.
Support for KLEK is brought to you by...
Years ago, Gail decided she would help me out by mowing the yard with our new lawnmower. I came home, the mower's in the front yard, running, the hoodie came down, V-shaped, lodged in the ground. Gail and Todd came out of the house. 2 little pine trees had been run over. I touched the mailbox, it fell over. Gail said, I stood it back up. Todd was small and been riding on the mower with her. He said, I just want it off. Glenn sang, and God bless our troops.
The Office of Diversity and Community Engagement at Arkansas State University, under the leadership of Dr. Lenny Williams, is a proud supporter of KLEK and is dedicated to finding innovative ways to advance their mission of creating a diverse and inclusive environment conducive to educating, enhancing, and enriching lives, uplifting various and diverse groups on the A-State campus, and striving to make Arkansas State University a place that is inclusive to all individuals, regardless of origin, color, religion, socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation. More information about Arkansas State University Office of Diversity and Community Engagement is available at www.astate.edu/diversity and 870-972-3081.
KLEK thanks the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life, such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
Arkansas Early Learning is accepting applications right now for childcare. We have locations all across Northeast Arkansas. Applications online at arearlylearning.org. That's arearlylearning.org. Right here in the community at no cost. Arkansas Early Learning, offering kids a head start.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversation on KLEK 102.5 FM. This is the Jonesboro City Clerk debate. We have Mrs. April Leggett, Mr. Stan Mitchell, and Mrs. Linda Allison, all three of the candidates that are running for City Clerk. And this is now the segment of our debate in which you, in our live feed, get to ask questions of the candidates, and we are going to get started. Patty Cheney-Lack says one candidate stated in their individual interviews that several citizens questioned the salary of the city clerk. The city of Jonesboro has not established a pay scale plan for our elected officials. Since one of you will be elected as our new city clerk, is it concerning to you that you don't know how much this position pays? We will start with Mrs. Leggett. You now have 2 minutes.
I'm going to say that yes, it is. While I know that the Arkansas Municipal League sends out a salary survey for cities to respond to, and there are a low, midpoint, and high for different cities throughout the state. Not everyone participates. I'm not aware of a salary schedule for elected officials in the city of Jonesboro. I have heard from previous interviews that it was around the $88,000 to $90,000, but I do not know that. I know my boss, Donna Jackson, does not make that quite yet, so I'm a little confused as to where that number came from. But it is concerning, and it should be addressed.
All right, we thank you, and we will now go to Mr. Mitchell. You now have 2 minutes.
Yes, I think the public does need to know what they're paying their elected officials. I think that should be transparent and put out there. I called to check to find out what it did pay, because I was being asked that out by the people of Jonesboro. When I called Human Resources, they really couldn't give me an answer. I'd done research online, and all I could find is, like what April said, there's a salary range of about $40,000 to $100,000. I was directed to Bill Campbell, the communications director, And when I posed the question to Mr. Campbell, he told me that the current clerk is making between $88,000 and $90,000. I'm just taking Mr. Campbell's word on that. He is communications director, so I would think that he would put out correct information to the public. So that's where I was basing my information from.
All right, we will now go to Mrs. Allison. You now have 2 minutes.
So I will agree with the other candidates that there is not any kind of established, like, this is exactly what you're going to make. But obviously, like the other two candidates, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be getting into something that was going to be a significant pay cut for me. So I have also done research on that and was provided a range of that salary, and talked to a city council member, and the council would actually be the ones who would vote on whether there was some type of salary adjustment. And I was given a different amount of money for a range of what Donna Jackson makes. And I'm sure that since that is an elected position, that if we did a Freedom of Information request, that we could actually drill down to what that salary amount would be currently for Donna Jackson. But I also know it is based on experience. But again, that definition of what is experience, whether coming from a private sector to this job with the experience that I have, would that be accounted for anything that we towards that job position?
Alrighty, and Ms. Leck, you did answer that question, right? Okay, just want to make sure. Got a little sidetracked for keeping up with all these Facebook Live comments. So now, and we're going to start with. Again, Mrs. Allison. I'm going to actually combine these next two questions. Donna Matt Purier says, does Linda Allison have any background in government? And I'm going to extend that to all three candidates. That's going to be part one. Part two, April Leggett, are there any changes you would do in the position of city clerk, or would you continue to follow the structure of Donna Jackson? So part one of the question is, do you have any background in government? And then what changes, if any, you would make to how the clerk's office is run, or would you continue with what Mrs. Jackson is doing? And since the first part was addressed to Mrs. Allison, we will start with her, and you now have 2 minutes.
Okay. So I have always worked private sector and not worked specifically in a government job. But my question to that would be, more importantly, what difference would that make, whether it was a government job or a private sector job? I would say that if you look at the direction that I come from, for example, customer service in my most current job here as a insurance agent, if I don't provide the utmost customer service to my clientele, I will lose that job. I mean, I'd lose that business, and they'll go to somebody else that would provide better customer service. So I know how important it is. I know that it's just vital in any job that you do. So I think I would bring my experience in that customer service to the table. And again, I don't mean to keep harping on other things, but the leadership ability, what I have learned in all of the jobs that I've ever had, I think that is an important aspect of this job. And again, a government type job, sometimes you kind of get lost in the shuffle of things of what your priorities are, because there's less accountability to the public.
All right, we'll now go to Mr. Mitchell. You now have 2 minutes.
Yes, I have 6.5 years experience in county government. And I believe that would serve me well. In that role, I've tried to show compassion to my fellow Jonesboroans when I worked in district court, rather than just issuing a non-payment of fine warrant against people. I would actually pick up the phone and call them and ask them to come by the office and make a payment, because that way I didn't have to add $205 to an outstanding balance that they already could not pay. I've continued that compassion in my current work with DHS, where I assist with the SNAP program and with Medicaid. When people turn in their semi-annual reports for the SNAP program, if it's not signed, that is a fatal error to that document. It will close that SNAP case, and they have to start completely over. Rather than sending that notice out in the mail and taking a chance of it getting lost or not getting returned within the 10-day time frame, I will call the people and ask them to run by the office and just sign the form. That way, the case doesn't close, because it concerns me, because if that case closes, there could be children in that home, and I don't want the children to go hungry.
All right, we will now go to Mrs. Leggett. You now have 2 minutes.
Okay, I have about 25 years experience in government sector. Part of that was with district court. Part of that was with the Jonesboro Housing Authority. Part of that was with Arkansas State University. And part of that was with the city of Jonesboro. And as far as what I would do in the office, Donna and I on most things agree, but we don't agree on everything. Our styles can be a little bit different, so there are things that would stay the same, but there are a lot of things that would change. And number one important thing is customer service, and I believe that's what we have been providing. I have worked really hard to make sure that I can help everyone that comes in our office, or who calls, or who emails.
That's it. All right, so we'll go to Quabila. Quabila is going to read this question, and it comes to us on our live feed from Mr. Brent Walker.
Okay. It says the city of Jonesboro will have a new mayor and a new city clerk next year. How can you provide a seamless transition and the continuity of operations the citizens deserve?
And we will start with who we're going to start with on that one?
We're going to go back to Ms. Leggett.
All right, so starting with Mrs. Leggett, you now have 2 minutes.
I'm ready. I've been in this office for 5.5 years. I've been the deputy clerk for the last 3. We're a small office of only 3, but we are prepared to take on the challenges that face us. I am more than willing to get with whomever becomes mayor and work together, because it's very important. It's a cohesive environment. You not only work with the mayor, you have department heads, you have your city council, you have your citizens. You all have to work together, and that's a very important aspect.
All right, we will now go to Mr. Mitchell.
Well, I would call upon my experience in working in county government. And I pledge to the citizens that I too will work with the new mayor, regardless of who is elected. I know both of them, and they're both fine candidates. They're good men. And whoever the citizens choose, I feel that we will have a good person in the mayor's office. I will use my experience, and I will call upon. I know some of the other clerks in the area from my work as a news reporter, and I'll call upon them, the municipal league, and ask, if there are things that I need to know. I mean, I feel though that my experience working in government will serve me well though. Thank you.
All right, we will now go to Mrs. Allison.
Sure. I do know both of the mayoral candidates that I feel like will be the 2 that will be in the final race, Andy Shatley and Harold Copenhaver. I know that Elwood is a 3rd candidate, but I don't see a whole lot of activity as far as yard signs or campaigning other than him being on the debate. But he may, come out to be a strong contender. But out of those candidates, I have no problem with working with either one. I know them both very well, and I would like to be able to, if I am elected as city clerk, be able to come into the office prior to 1/1 and be able to get a better understanding of the day-to-day operations. Would like to be able to look at a standard operating procedures manual, and I hope that's already in place. Would also reach out to Municipal League. I have already reached out to other city clerks. Would sit down with Donna Jackson and get more detailed information from her. We just had an initial discussion when I filed paperwork about how much the job has changed. So there would be a small learning curve, but as I've said before, the successful part of learning any job is getting in and shortening that learning curve and learning that. And I would be ready on day 1. I will promise you that. If I am elected as city clerk, I will do my homework after the election and learn that position to the best of my ability over the next 2 months to be prepared for that transition on 1/1.
All right, and we thank you for your response. And that is going to conclude this segment of our debate. We're going to get ready to go into our next break. But when we come back from the break, the candidates will ask a question of each other. So looking forward to seeing what they come up with. Of course, I don't think I have to tell y'all to keep it civil. You all have done a great job so far. So we definitely appreciate that. Back in a few, stay with us. This is Community Conversations on KLEK 2.5 FM.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. It's important that you recognize and guard against the 7 deadly sins of money management. Today, we'll cover lust and pride. Lust. This is when you spend for the pure joy of it. When you're willing to lie, cheat, go into debt, and even steal to shop, that's lust. Another sign. After the highs of spending, you're hit with the lows of guilt. Pride. We're often guilty of pride in 2 ways. One is when we're too prideful to admit that we're in deep financial trouble and we won't reach out for help. Whether that means getting credit counseling or just admitting to your spouse or your kids that you really can't afford this expensive stuff they want. The other side of pride is not being able to say to yourself, I can't afford this right now. A lot of people feel that this admission means that they failed themselves in some way. Swallow your pride and focus on what you can afford. Never be ashamed to live within your means. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, focused on joy in our sisterhood, power in our voice, and service in our hearts. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by the Guide Right Jonesboro Kappa League, a nonprofit organization that guides young men to a life of achievement. Kappa League Jonesboro on Facebook, Jonesboro_Kappa League on Instagram, and JonesboroKappaLeague@gmail.com.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Starks Auto Plaza and Auto Service now under one roof. 2829 Redwood Boulevard, serving the Jonesboro community for over 5 years. They offer wholesale pricing to the public on vehicles, financing for everyone, and synthetic blend and full synthetic oil changes with spin-on filter with vehicle inspection included. Starks Auto Plaza. We never say no. 870-203-9980. Details at starksautoplaza.com.
KLEK 102.5 FM salutes small businesses. Small businesses promote local character and success, keeping money in the local economy, local jobs, entrepreneurship, community well-being, and so much more. Contact us today to learn more on how your small business could be featured on KLEK for as little as $25 per month.
Shout out to Treasures Kids Daycare, child care for preschool 2.5 to 5 years old. 5114 East Nettleton Avenue, Jonesboro. 870-623-5770. Treasures Kids Daycare on Facebook.
Shout out to Sonia Sanders Realtor, there for you whether buying or selling a home. Listings and other information is available at soldinjonesboro.com. Sonia Sanders Realtor on Facebook, 870-275-8712.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And we're back on Community Conversation on KLEK 102.5 FM. This is our Jonesboro City Clerk debate. We have Mrs. April Leggett, Mr. Stan Mitchell, and Mrs. Linda Allison, the candidates running for clerk, still here in the studio. And this is now the segment of the debate in which the candidates will ask questions for each other. So the way it's going to work, I'm going to lead off with Mrs. Allison. She will ask a question. You can direct it to either or both of your opponents, and then whoever's the question directed to will have two minutes to respond, and then you will get 2 minutes to rebut. And then Mr. Mitchell will ask his question, and then Mrs. Leggett will ask her question. So now, Mrs. Allison, you may now ask your question.
Sure. I know that both of you have worked in a government position, but I'm just wondering, have you worked in any type of administrative or managerial role to prepare you for a city clerk position?
We'll start with Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, well, I was marketing director here for about a year and a half for some major hotels, and then as I was a senior news reporter, and I would assist the cub reporters when they would come in and with their work and such. So I do have a little experience there.
All right, we'll now go to Mrs. Leggett.
Early in my career, I worked in the private sector, and I did customer service, and I was over managing some employees. Also, when I worked for the Jonesboro Housing Authority, I was the public housing assistant manager, so I would also manage employees in that position. And with the city clerk's office, I do have one staff member that's under me that I manage.
All right, and now, Mrs. Allison, you have 2 minutes to respond to their comments.
Okay, so I know that sometimes working in those type positions, it takes years of experience of having dealt with employees, whether you're hiring or firing. Those are all things that I have done over my career, not, in various job responsibilities. I've been in administrative roles. I've done conducted meetings, been the president of various organizations where I actually conducted those meetings, provided minutes, agendas, those sort of things. So I've been in managerial or leadership roles for a number of years, and I feel like I provide great communication skills to be the next city clerk.
All right, we thank you for that. We will now go to Mr. Mitchell. You may now ask your question.
Well, I'd like to ask April, how many city council meetings have you attended this year in place of our elected clerk?
All right, April, you now have 2 minutes to respond.
For this year, there have been 59 meetings that were of the city council, either city council or city council committee meetings. I've attended 58 of those 59.
All right, Mr. Mitchell, you now have 2 minutes to respond back.
I think that's commendable of you to be the go-to person in that office. That's very commendable for you to step up. But on the same hand, I think it's important for our elected clerk to be at the city council meeting, because that's the position, she's elected to, and that's the job duty. And if I am elected the clerk, I promise the people of Jonesboro, your elected clerk will attend the meetings, not my deputy.
All right, was that it?
Yes.
Okay, we will now go to Mrs. Leggett. You may now ask your question.
This is for Miss Allison. I know you have 30 years experience in the private sector of owning your own business. What has made you want to make a change at this point to go into the government?
That's a very good question. I appreciate you asking that. I actually received a phone call from somebody in city government last fall when they made me aware that Donna Jackson would be retiring at the end of this year. And that person said, Linda, I really want you to take a look at this position because you have the leadership skills, you have management background, you have customer service, you have all the skill set of a person that we're looking for to serve as our next city clerk. And at the time, I said, well, thank you. I'm very flattered for that phone call that they thought so highly of me to run for that position, or to run for this position. So I did some research, and that's when I called some other city clerks in the state. I talked to several different people in city government. I've talked to former CFOs for the city of Jonesboro, and I've talked to former city employees to get their opinion of that city clerk position. And so after doing some of that research, I visited again with this person in city government, and said, I'm on board with running for this position. Then our pandemic hit. And so then that was like, well, how do I get my message out? Because I've not been in that position of work, of, campaigning and being an elected official. So it's had me to take a step back and look at how to effectively campaign to get my message out, that I feel like I am the candidate with the best leadership skills, and to be able to get out and tell people what my management background has been and how I've owned up my own business and have gone through all of those type things to better.
Mrs. Allison, time has
Okay,
expired.
sorry.
I apologize. Okay, Mrs. Leggett, you now have 2 minutes to respond to her comments.
I appreciate your response, and I understand it. I also understand from a point of my parents having a small business that it can be a difficult transition to change from what you've been doing for such a long time, because you have a different workload, different atmosphere than you have with the city government.
All right, we thank you. So, and I don't even think I hit the time. I apologize, but I know that was under 2 minutes. So, we definitely thank you all for asking these questions of each other. We're going to now actually go into our next part of the debate, and I think this is going to be the most upbeat part of it. It is where each person will say something nice about each of their 2 opponents, and we're going to start with you, Mrs. Leggett.
Being that I have a daughter that is in multiple sports, Linda, I know that you and your husband have done a lot in the public for students and student athletes, and I very much appreciate that. And Stan, I've read, and I don't know you very well, but I've read about you, and I've read that you have done a lot of work with Humane Society and with lost pets, and being that we have rescue pets as well, that's very dear to my heart, and I think that's a wonderful thing, and being a compassionate person is something to hold dear.
All right, we thank you. Now, Mr. Mitchell.
Well, I would like to thank Ms. Allison for wanting to learn about the position and to use her skills. I mean, she's a very worthy opponent. She's very likable, very nice person. I think she is highly skilled. And to be honest, I think any one of us would make a good clerk. We're both, all three, I mean, are dedicated to it, and we will. I think we'll all work hard. We all have a strong work ethic. We're committed to our positions, and I think she's a very worthy opponent.
All right, we'll now go to Mrs. Allison.
Well, I want to say thank you both. This has been really different running as an elected official and having to get out and talk to the public and interact with different people. And I will say, April, I appreciate you going through and getting your certification in the as a city clerk. I know how important that is. I know when I first started out of college, I got a certification with the job that I was working at that time, and it took a lot of effort to go through, because basically each module that I had to test for was about a semester long, and then I would go to University of Memphis and test for that and get that certification. And then also when I got my insurance license, I had to sit through 40 hours of classroom time, and then now I have to go through every 24 hours of certification every 2 years to continue with licensing as well as others. So I can appreciate you sitting through 120 hours of classroom time to get a certification. And then Stan, I have talked to some people that have said, he's well known. I talked to a lady that I ran into when I was working in a neighborhood who said, I've got to go vote for Stan. I've known him for 30 years. And so you have some commitment there from some people that are loyal to you. And I also was very impressed in your last interview that whatever if you were out campaigning, at the end of the day, you would go see your parents. And I just was really impressed because I know with everybody's schedule being so difficult, I'm just thought that was very nice that you would take the time to go see your parents at the end of every day.
And we thank you for that. It is now time for our closing statements. I want to thank each and every one of you for jumping in. Before we go to closing statements, I want to go to Quabila to see if she may have had any final comments.
I just want to say thank you all for your time. Thank you all for being willing to run for this position. Every area of city government is very vital to the functioning of our government and meeting the needs of our citizens. So again, thank you for being willing to put yourself in this position. Again, I am unbiased on who I'm voting for or who I support. So I just wish you all well in your endeavors. And I really hope that you can live up to the messaging that you are portraying to serve the needs of the people and be transparent and, again, provide that quality customer service and continue to get education and, what can I say, training if you are elected for that position.
All right, thank you for that, Quabila. We're going to now go into our closing statement, and since we let off with Mrs. Leggett, we will start with Mrs. Allison. Go ahead.
Ms. Patty said that Mr. Mitchell forgot to say something nice about April.
Actually, a little further in the comments, Donna Matt Purier says, no, he applauded her on her commitment and dedication.
Okay, I'm sorry. My scroll is slow.
Well, that's why I was about to say something before Mrs. Purier did her comment. So now we will go into closing statements, 2 minutes starting with, my clock is tripping, with Mrs. Allison.
First of all, I just want to take a moment to say directly to Harold Perrin, thanks for your encouragement and for me to be running for city clerk. And I hope everything goes well. You're in our prayers every day, and I hope that your health returns to normal soon. But I also want to ask the audience and all of our residents of Jonesboro to take a close consideration for city clerk position. And I am Linda Allison, and I'm running for that position. And I will bring my leadership skills, my integrity, my teamwork, and transparency to that office. I am dedicated to be a very hardworking person, to be organized, efficient, and responsive to your need. I am always the type person to look to improve in any way that I can. I've always taken ownership of every job that I've ever had as if it were my own, if I own that business myself. So you will just be reassured to know that I am going to take a personal ownership in it and will run it to the best ability that I can, and that I will be there to help other departments as well and work closely with city government to make Jonesboro the best place to be and to raise your family. And just know that I will be out working in the community as much as I can so that I can reach out to the general public and be a voice for them. I talked to somebody in our neighborhood and said, if you have trouble ever getting in to see the mayor, you let me know. I'll be your voice, because I will be working closely with the mayor's office and would be happy to be your next city clerk. So I hope you'll consider voting for me.
All right, Mr. Mitchell.
Yes. Well, I'd like to thank KLEK for holding this forum. This is the way the public can get to know us a little better, and my opponents are right that it is difficult to get your message out during this virus. I want the people of Jonesboro to know that I will only serve 2 terms, that if I'm elected your city clerk. I just feel that it is a mistake, given the current political environment, particularly in the county, that when we leave elected officials in for long periods of time, that we make a mistake. And I feel strongly enough about that to pledge to you that I will only serve 2 terms if I'm elected. I also will not accept a pay raise during the first 4-year term. I don't believe it's right to get in there and then in 2 years ask the citizens to raise their taxes in order to give me a raise. I feel strongly about this. I will not accept it, and I will not seek it. I will be a team player. I will work closely with the mayor and the council. And again, I'll try to build that bridge between the city clerk's office and our citizens. My door will always be open. And again, call me. As a news reporter, people often call me at home. I'm accustomed to that. And I will also, I pledge to you that I will stay after the city council meetings and help the students, help the citizens. If you need an issue clarified, I'll clarify that issue. We'll replay the tape. We'll let you hear exactly what it said. And again, I want you to know that as a news reporter, I would not go off the record. I'm used to telling people, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And I pledge to you as your city clerk that I will not go off the record as well.
All right, Mrs. Leggett.
Yes, my name is April Leggett. I'm your current deputy city clerk, and I'm running for the office of city clerk. And I would appreciate your vote for the office of city clerk. I appreciate KLEK in this forum and allowing us to speak and get our voices out. I pray for those who are sick and who have lost loved ones. I know I've lost someone that was close to me, and I just pray for our nation. And I also want to say that my platform has been, I'm honest, hardworking, and I'm qualified. I work really hard for this office, and I will continue to do so. The public, the citizens, the staff, the elected officials, all are my family.
We thank you for that. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you and your family and to the families of the other candidates as well. We thank each and every one of you so much for taking part in this debate. And just like we said with the mayoral candidates yesterday, I implore each of you to go back when you have time. Go back on this video. There were some questions that came after our segment from the live audience. Please answer those questions and engage with our viewers and our listeners. And thank you to each and every one of you that watched on our live feed and that tuned in on 102.5 FM. Just a quick programming reminder, don't forget tomorrow, Saturday, October 3rd, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., there will be a voter registration event at the Salvation Army. KLEK, we will broadcast live there. Several of the local candidates for office will be there. You'll have an opportunity to meet them and ask them questions. So if you're not registered to vote, I implore you to come out. Even if you are registered to vote, still come out, because it will be another opportunity for you to engage the candidates. Also, another programming note, at 12 o'clock noon today, the NEA Political Animals will host a mayoral debate. It will be at the Chamber of Commerce, KLEK. We will bring that to you live as well. Also, we will resume our debates here on KLEK this Tuesday with the Jonesboro City Council Ward 1 Position 2 debate. We're going to have the candidates for that race in the studio, and we'll have debates going all month long. So you got to stay tuned to KLEK so that you can remain engaged with the candidates. Again, KLEK and the Voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. We do not endorse, support, or oppose any candidate for office. These debates, is provided for informational purposes only, but I cannot stress enough to exercise your right to vote. Election day is November 3rd. Early voting starts October 19th. If you are concerned about COVID-19, and obviously the President of the United States now has COVID, so if it can happen to the President, it could happen to anyone. So if you are concerned, go ahead and request an absentee ballot. You can drop it back off at the clerk's office. If you can, that'd probably be the best option because the mail is running slow. But don't delay. No matter how you vote, we just encourage you to vote. Want to once again thank our candidates for stopping by the studio today, and thank each and every one of you for listening. You guys have a great and blessed day. This has been your Jonesboro City Clerk Debate on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Broadcasting from the First National Bank Tower, this is KLEK